How many people here in their adult life have moved at least 5 times? Raise your hand. Okay, there's a lot of you. Awesome. How many times has anybody here moved 10 times? Okay. Now, I would assume maybe that you're in the military, or no? No. Well, if anybody is, thank you for your service. Anybody here moved 15 times? Wow, that's great. Well, we're in company together. I have moved 15 times in 30 years of marriage, and we've raised 4 kids. My husband is John Garrett. He has been in football his whole life. We've raised 4 kids, and we've moved 15 times, and I think, how many houses have we had? I'm not really sure. We've had a lot of houses, but I've gotten really good at rehabbing. I think I should have been on the HGTV show before it even existed. But you know, when we got married, I was a sports reporter for an ABC affiliate. My husband was playing football at the time. And I thought I was just marrying the love of my life and my best friend, but it turns out I was marrying a lifestyle and signing up for an entire lifetime of road games. And we didn't have a GPS, and we didn't have a playbook. We had no idea what we were doing, but that's like most young couples. None of us know what we're doing when we first get married, right? And we made a lot of mistakes. I can remember when my husband got his first job in the NFL. It was with the Cincinnati Bengals, and we were so excited. We wanted all of our friends to come visit, and so they did, because who doesn't want to come to Tampa? But we didn't tell them that we don't get free tickets. So the first year of our marriage, where I think he was only making $20,000 a year, and I might have been making a little bit more for a nonprofit, we were barely getting by, and we went $10,000 in debt just paying for tickets for friends and family. So we kind of learned our lesson really, really quick. But I want to say the reason that I love sports is I really think that you can learn almost every life lesson through a sport. And what better way to learn the lessons in life, the sweet and the harsh realities, is by doing something you love. And we are so blessed that John has been able to make a living doing the things that he loves. And so I'm so grateful for that. And a lot of times we hear, it's just a game, right? It's just a game. But for us, it has never been just a game. It's our livelihood. And next to our faith and our family, the game is everything. It was our greatest source of joy. It was a source of challenge and struggle. It was really what galvanized our family together. So the stories that I'm going to share with you, I really hope they won't necessarily, you might not identify with them, but the lessons are universal. And through a lifetime of football and 15 moves and 4 kids, I've learned this formula that I created called the W.I.N formula. I love acronyms, by the way, so you'll hear a lot of them. It's the only way at my age I can even remember anything, so I love the acronyms. So W stands for work on your mindset. Because I really believe that in life, if your whole success is in between your ears, and it's about how you think and how you feel is going to actually decide and determine the actions you're going to take and the results that you have in your life and the success that you have. So your mindset is so important. And honestly, when I have trouble with my own mindset, and I want to know, because it matters how you feel about yourself. If you can't feel good about yourself, I actually go and go, how does God feel about me? Because if you truly know how he feels about you, you would never be sad in your life. And then I stands for invite new experiences. John and I, obviously, we were forced to have new experiences over and over again. But when you can invite new experiences with intention, then you're creating the life that you want. And then N stands for nurture healthy relationships. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's about the relationships that you have with other people. And that's really what makes getting up in the morning and doing your thing, is that you're making an impact in other people's lives. So when we talk about some of the stories, obviously the big one's moving. I've mentioned that. But with moving, the lesson I learned is perspective matters. I know so many women in the NFL, wives that are bitter and divorced because they felt like their husband was never home, they never had time for them. And I just chose to look at it as we were gaining new friends, we're having new experiences. I knew that John was going to work and he was doing everything he could to provide for our family, and I was at home doing what I could. And so, yes, it is interesting because every time you move, you're not just taking a new job, you're finding a new house, and this is with 4 kids. You're finding a new house, new schools, new doctors, new teams, and the worst thing, because I can take all that, and I really had a good attitude about that, but the deal breaker that would have been is if I had known that I had to deal with 15 different DMVs. Can you imagine going to 15 DMVs and new licenses and new plates and all? That to me is torture, but we made it through. But we really don't worry about ourselves. I worry about our kids, because every time you move, it's funny, as adults, my kid adults, they say, people always ask us where we're from. And they're like, do you want to know where I was born, where I lived the longest, where I graduated from high school, or where my parents live now? Because I really don't know where I live. And so yes, we worried about our kids every time we moved. Would they fit in? Would they make the team? And so what we did is we would have this thing called the family huddle. So, and we still do it today, but they're not in the house anymore. But when we knew that John had a new job and he was taking a job and what it was all going to entail, we would do research and find out all the cool stuff about this town. And then after that, we would call a family huddle. We thought it was great. Now you'd have to ask our kids if they have a little PSD around that term. And John would sell the new place like it was, like he was recruiting the best recruit to come to, as of now, Duke University. And I mean, we would make it seem like the kids were going to be going to Disney World. Now, did it work? Well, there were tears. There were still some sad faces. However, because we were excited and we had this energy that was going to be amazing, our kids mirrored that energy. It became easier for them to dive in to their new experience. And that's all fine and well when you get a new job and everything's great, right? But what about when you're fired? What about when you don't have anywhere to go? So I remember when we had 3 kids, my husband was at the Arizona Cardinals as the quarterback coach, and we had a terrible season. Everyone was fired, from the head coach down to the video editor. We were wiped clean. And we had 2 paychecks left till the end of our contract. We had no savings. We had 3 mouths to feed. We didn't know if insurance was going to run out. We could have totally freaked out. And I'm sure that my husband was freaking out inside. And I remember that day so vividly, but it wasn't because he lost his job. It's because the exact same day, within an hour, I found out I was pregnant with our 4th child, Caroline. And when John came home, I told him. And when I told him the news, he looked at me and he said, "That is the best news I could have heard today." And right there, I knew that my husband was not only an amazing coach, he was an incredible leader. Because at that moment, he knew what his family needed from him. So we would feel safe, we would feel like everything was going to be okay. Because leaders, they don't panic, they pivot. And he really demonstrated that. So it was a really amazing time, even though we had no idea. And FYI, we did get a job within 24 hours. So God is good. He's still good even if we hadn't, but. And then I remember these times when we were with the Dallas Cowboys. And at that point, we had 4 children. And just to give you, a heads up. We have a son, John Morgan Garrett, Jr. He is 29 years old, and he lives in Harlem, New York, and he is a 6th grade English teacher. Our oldest daughter, Honor 3, my mom, then me, then her. She is in PR in Nashville. And then our daughter, Olivia, is a 3rd grade teacher in Charleston. And then Caroline just graduated from UNC, and she works in Nashville for a company called Moondance Adventures. She's our child, the adventurous travel child. So we were in Dallas, and John Morgan, our oldest, he was probably in middle school. He comes home and he's just really sad. And we're like, hey, buddy, what's up? And he was like, nothing. I was like, all right, come on, something's up. And he said, well, people are saying bad things about Uncle Jason and Dad. Now, Uncle Jason was the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys at the time. My husband was the tight end coach. He said, Mom, they're saying that Uncle Jason and Dad are terrible coaches and they don't know what they're doing and they should be fired. And it made me realize how important that we need to teach our kids that your self-worth is not defined by what other people say. It's not even defined by what you do. It's about who you are as a person and the impact that you make in life. And so we taught our kids to get out of the goop. And yes, goop is another acronym. It stands for good opinion of other people. We need to stop trying to please everyone, because if you don't get out of the goop, you will never reach your God-given potential, ever, because you're going to be trying to live your life for someone else. So we taught our kids that at a very young age, because imagine you're in middle school, or one of your children are in middle school, and their dad's a doctor, or a lawyer, or even a plumber. None of their peers are coming to school going, your dad sucks. He needs to be fired. He doesn't know what he's doing. To have the person that means the most in your life that you look up to, that other people are talking bad about. So our kids learn to grow tough skin really early. But on a lighter note, he also came home from school one day, and he ran home. He's like, Mom, guess what happened today? I said, what? And he said, I met someone who's lived in the same house and gone to the same school their entire life. Can you believe that? And I was like, yeah, that's what normal families do. But it's funny because you know, and you embrace what you know, and that's okay. So we were very blessed about that. And one of the most asked questions that people always ask us is, what is your favorite place? Where's the best place that you've ever lived? And John and I can honestly say that we've absolutely loved every place that we've lived, because it's about the people you meet, and it's never about the game, and it's not about the gear, even though I do have a lot of gear and I like it. It's not about that. It's always about the people, and we've met incredible people along the way, and where people think, well, gosh, that's so challenging, and we just look at it this way. If you can look at the obstacles and the challenges in your life as an adventure, then your life becomes one. And that's pretty much how we chose to look at things. One last little story I'll tell you, because it's near and dear to my heart, is when you're in the NFL, you can't miss a day. And sometimes those games land on Christmas. And so your husband's not home for Christmas Eve, he's not home for Christmas. And the first time this happened, Caroline was really little, and she looked at Dad and me, and she says, "You can't go play a game on Christmas." She says, "Dad, you have to read 'Twas the Night Before Christmas." Because that was our tradition. Our tradition was that we go to church on Christmas Eve, we come back and we read the story of the birth of Jesus, and then Dad, with all his vigor and silliness and liveliness, would read 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. And then, of course, we would watch It's a Wonderful Life. We still do that to this day. Even though our kids are grown, we still do that. But we're thinking, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? How are we going to make this right for our kids? And we had to get creative. Now, mind you, this was before FaceTime, so we couldn't just call and you couldn't just read to them. So I found a book that you could record your voice. And we wrapped it up, and Caroline opened it on Christmas Eve, and she was thinking, this is so wrong because Dad's not even here. But when she opened it up, she saw the book, and she pressed the button, and she looked at me and she said, "Dad is here." And it was so amazing to see the expression on her face and how excited that she was. And the lesson I learned right there, because of the business that we're in, is intentionality far trumped proximity at that point. Because you know what? Even you guys, you can't always be with your families when you want to, right? Whether it's logistical location or whether it's physical issues that you can't get to your family. But just know those little intentional things that you do can make a bigger difference than even just being close. So that actual happening to us is probably a memory we'll have even more than the tradition that we do. And so there's so many other stories, but I know you were on a timeline, so if you have any questions afterwards, we're gonna go through that. Because as my mom mentioned yesterday, she goes, I remember just the fact that you could never just have a birth like a normal birth. You had to schedule it. Because my husband only had a half day on Fridays. So in the NFL, so every one of our children were born on Friday. So we would schedule an induction. John would drop me off at the hospital. He would go to his walkthrough, like the NFL practice walkthrough. And then we'd give him a call and said, okay, come on back when you're off work. And then we'd have our child. So you couldn't have a sick day. And so it's really interesting. But you know, in closing, I mean, it has been such a ride and we're so grateful. But whether you've moved 15 times or you've never left Greensboro, it isn't about where you live. It's about the impact that you have where you are, that you're growing where you're planted. And honestly, you guys have a little bit of an advantage if you've lived in the same place for a long time, because you can see the impact. You could look back and see how much growth and how you've made this city a better place. Sometimes we wonder, we put our little bit in everywhere we've gone, but that was what we were supposed to do. That was our mission. So I just wanted to encourage everybody today that no matter what's happening in your life, you're not a victim. You are the captain, the CEO of your life, and perfection doesn't exist. Everything that we did in life, it was never perfect. Did we doubt the decisions we made? We still doubt them today. Did we do the right thing? Did we mess them up? Did we, things like that. But I'm glad to say that we are blessed to have 4 grown children that are thriving and doing well. And it's interesting because that did lead to some financial stress in our life, because at one point my husband we moved every year for 6 years. So you can't be in state until you've lived somewhere for a year. So none of our kids could get in-state tuition because we were basically nomads and we didn't have a substantial home that we could consider ourselves in-state. But we told our kids, it mattered to us to tell our kids, listen, if you can get into a good school, go. We will figure it out. Because in our mind, we felt like we would rather be paying Parent Plus college loans till the day we die than be paying for a drug rehab. We really felt like for their mental health, this is a home you're gonna have for 4 years. You're gonna meet amazing people. You're gonna have these contacts for the rest of your life. And it was important for us because we knew that we had dragged them around the country their whole lives. So, but do we doubt some of the decisions we made? Of course, it's human nature. We all doubt. And that's probably why I became a life coach, because I just see the potential in people and I want them to help see that for themselves. And because we doubt ourselves sometimes, it's so important that you have a cheerleader. We all need to find our cheerleaders, our wingman, somebody that's gonna be there for you. And thankfully I have an army. First of all of you here today, thank you for coming. But my mom and dad, my mom and my dad, I wouldn't be here today without them. And my dad
literally
is, exactly, thank you.
I hope so.
But, and my dad is my unofficial agent, as you can tell. If you haven't been, I don't know if you came here because you wanted to, or he coached you or paid you to come, but I appreciate it no matter how it happened. And so it's so important to have those people that are supporting you. And I do. And I have my husband and my kids are my biggest fans. And so I really leave you with the fact that if you focus on those 3 things that I talked about, working on your mindset, inviting new experiences, that's how it keeps us young and keeps us growing, and nurturing healthy relationships, you're going to win in life. And all of you have already won because you're here, and I really appreciate it. And I do like to leave a challenge for everybody, because I don't like to just talk and then not leave something for somebody to do. And Chip knows that because I always ask him to do stuff. But my challenge for you today is either turn to somebody here, and if you don't want to do it here, when you go back, call a friend, and think about one thing that you've always wanted to do in life, and do it. And just plan it, and have that person that you tell hold you accountable for it. Because regret is just not in my vocabulary, and I never want anyone to regret anything or wish they had done something and didn't do it, because there's nothing to lose, right? Or what I want you to do, if you don't do that, I want you to spread hope. And hope means help one person every day. Because scientifically, when you do something to help someone else, you actually raise their dopamine, their oxytocin, the love and connection chemicals in their body, but it does the same for you, the giver. So why wouldn't you do that? So I really appreciate you being here today. And if you have any questions about football or our crazy life, I'm happy to answer. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
So I love the idea that you had this proactive huddle to sell moving to the new locations. And you address that up front, but it had to have been difficult to explain why you were going to do.
That was more of a challenge for me. I am a UNC Tar Heel graduate, and I can remember putting on a Duke t-shirt a year ago to go to the Duke Carolina basketball game. And I'm putting on this Duke shirt and I look at my husband like, I cannot believe I'm doing this. But now I really, I do. I root for Duke. It's blood's thicker. But I root for Carolina when Duke and Carolina aren't playing. And it's funny that you said that because along the way, John worked for the Florida Gators for a time. And while our daughter was at UGA, and we had that Florida Georgia game, and she's like, Dad, can I have tickets? He's like, if you wear Gator gear, I'll give you tickets. So there was also, and Caroline, our youngest, was at UNC last year, and John had just taken the job at Duke. And I will say this, just so blessed, is that Caroline and her dad got to see each other her last semester of her senior year so many times and go to dinner together by themselves. And it was just such a special, she told me, she goes, I don't think I've ever spent this much time alone with Dad in my life. Because as the fourth, there's always three others along with you. And so it's been a blessing to come full circle, be back close to Greensboro, back close to my parents. And so, yeah. But it's always a struggle to sell them on the next place. So, does anybody else have any questions? All right. Oh, yes.
Well, I'm slightly offended because Jim and Honor did not offer me money to come to this.
Well, maybe next time